Yeah, I think biggest thing about last weekend for me is those were 2 wins against 2 very good teams. I think it's really unfortunate that neither of them made the NCAA tournament. But to me, playing against them really is going to set us up for success, I think, this coming weekend.
Nikki, we talk about this all the time. I remember in the preseason even, like, this year's team can't beat last year's team. So that said, what do you want the focus of this year's team to be going into the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting. Like, this has by far been the most challenging season I've had to coach just because you're coming off, with a lot of expectations last year, I think from external, and I think from my standpoint, there's no one that's going to put more pressure on myself than me. So, it's been a challenge in trying to figure out what this group needs. And to be honest, I don't think I figured that out until Virginia this year, like right around that time. And my staff as well, we were just kind of knocking on a lot of different doors, trying to figure out what does the 2022 group need. And so I feel like we've been able to figure that out this past month, and that's been really refreshing.
How do you feel about the matchup with Maryland?
Excited about Maryland, to be honest. I don't think if I were them, I'd want to play us, to be perfectly honest. So just excited about it. I think it's a great opportunity. They're a phenomenal team, but we're looking forward to it.
Do you feel like you're playing your best hockey at this point in the season? That's why you say that?
Yeah, I don't think that had we not been able to make some changes a month ago and really come together as a unit that we win, the tournament yesterday.
And what adjustments did you have to make with this team? It seemed like, you said starting with Virginia, where you played, a team that was in the top 10, very close.
Mm-hmm. I think a big thing for us is the connectedness. Like, we figured out what we needed to do to come together as a group, and that was focused on being more connected to each other. I think some of the intangibles at the beginning of the season of things that have always made Liberty Field Hockey, of being relentless and outworking and attacking, some of those things just they weren't present at the beginning. We kind of had to go down some, just I guess different pathways to get the team to back to where we were, in terms of the intangibles.
What's the grade of this team? I feel like it's going down. You're never having. What's the grade of this team this year?
What was the question?
Like, is a gritty team, like, pull out these wins, like, you give a late goal and come right back?
Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting, like, we, for the first time against, UConn, were able to go down and then come back and win. That was the first time in the season that we went down a goal and then we came back and we won. So I think that resiliency piece is kind of what I'm getting at in terms of we're able to get something different out of the group than we were at the beginning of the season, because when we went down, it was like we either won by a shutout, and we had 10 of those, which is incredible, but if we had that adversity, we weren't able to bounce back from it. But I know that we're in a different place than we were a month ago.
Oftentimes when you go into postseason, it's just about who's playing the best at the moment. Do you feel good about the timing of which you're heading into the NCAA tournament?
I do. I think another thing that's really powerful and why I have confidence going into this weekend is because we have our foundation, we have our base, we have our intangibles back, and that's something that no matter what a team is going to try to throw at you from a tactical standpoint, you can't take away our heart, you can't take away our fight or our grit, and some of those things that has always made this program really special.
From a confidence standpoint, you return a lot of players that played Maryland last year in the Final Four, and they know what it's like to play on that type of stage and also go on the road like you did to Rutgers last year. Does that help that they're not going to be overwhelmed by this environment?
Yeah, it's just so interesting because we've tried so much this year not to focus on last year because it is a different team, and if we're still concerned with what was going on last year, then we're probably not going to be successful. I think that was a strength of the group, but with that said, it's like that is an experience that you have. That's something, it's like you do know what to expect coming into it, so I think it's a strength if you make it one.
You made a point because you're a Big Ten player to play Big Ten teams, so you understand the physicality, how they play. Is that helpful going into a postseason where, because Big Ten, they beat up on each other because that's what you're going to see in postseason, that you're already prepared for that?
Yeah, and I think it's huge. I think playing Northwestern early on, playing UNC, like how many teams, just in any sport could say, hey, you've played the number one team in the country twice because they were both ranked number one at different times. So I just think that in general, I think the Big East is honestly a pretty physical conference, even more than the ACC. So I think having a Big Ten matchup suits us really well because we're not afraid to be physical.
You were first-year head coach last time the team was at Maryland. What do you remember about that game, and just how have you seen yourself grow and evolve over time in those 5 years since that time?
Yeah, I think I'm in a completely different place. I think just like a lot of things in life, it's a function of experience and having the experiences that we have, having 2 conference championships back to back, going to a national championship last year. You know, it's not scary, it's not intimidating, it's exciting and something that you don't have to convince yourself about being ready for. I know that I'm ready for it because we've been in this position before.
I hate to put the expectation out, but I'm just going to ask it anyway. Having made the run that you did last year, do you think this team has the tools to make that run and maybe even be the last one standing at the end?
I think that if I don't believe that, then we have no chance. So I think absolutely that we can do it. I think a big part of it is you got to be in the tournament in order to do it. And we've said that for every single year. So I think that Bethany Dykema said this yesterday, and she said it beautifully. I think a lot of teams want to beat us, but not a lot of teams want to play us because of the intangibles, because of the fight, and because of those things that we referenced earlier. I think that we're a scary team to see in the postseason for those reasons.
And how did you find out? Like, where were y'all at when y'all were coming back? So where were y'all finding about the selection show? How'd y'all watch it?
So we ended up watching it. We pulled off an exit in Charlottesville to make sure that we weren't in, the middle of nowhere in between Charlottesville and Lynchburg. So I just watched a selection show, and I honestly, am not just saying this, but could not be more excited for the matchup. We don't have to go out to Northwestern. We don't have to fly. We're not stuck down on the 1 seed side of the bracket, first round. So we're really excited about where we landed in Princeton and Syracuse being there as well.
What's the grit, or not grit, sorry. How's this team grown through the ups and downs this whole year?
Yeah, I think I learned a lot, I think a big thing that we tried to focus on early on after we lost to JMU with our RPI, it just wasn't going to happen for us making the tournament as an at-large bid. A lot of other years we've been in a position where we could have been selected had we not won the Big East, but we knew pretty early that we weren't going to be able to make that happen just from a numbers standpoint. So what was really cool, though, is we were always in a position from a conference standpoint. So I think that was where our focus went pretty early on, just because we knew that was our way to the national championship, was having to win the conference. So it's been cool to see the team grow.
And who's kind of stepped up in that during that time?
Man, I think, someone that has really stepped up that isn't on the field and that people wouldn't see for sure on a stat sheet is Santia, one of our backup goalkeepers. She's just been an unbelievable leader for us on the sideline. If you listen, you spend any amount of time with us, like the energy that she's been able to bring, the leadership of still pulling people in when things aren't going well has been massive. And I think some of that leadership that we lost from last year was missing early on in the year. And I think our team leadership council has also really stepped up. Lizzie Hamlet, we added both Lizzie and Santia to our TLC just in the last couple weeks because we felt that's what needed to happen for the team.
I guess given the rivalry with ODU, just winning that game last night, did that feel more special or equally special or not as special as the UConn win last year?
It's so interesting for me personally. I think the first time winning it at UConn, I don't know that anything will ever compare to that, just because the first time you do something, it's just different, I think last night was pretty cool just because the rivalry is pretty intense with Old Dominion. I thought the stands, the fans there, it was intense. I honestly think it was just as loud as the national championship, and we haven't been in an environment like that since last year. So I think winning that there under those circumstances against a really good opponent was something I will not forget for a very long time.
Besides and beyond the training and all the big efforts they make every day, what keeps your team together, especially when you have to do so many, so much traveling and whatnot? There are so many ups and downs and things they have to adapt to. Mm-hmm. So what's the kind of culture that keeps your team together?
I think the biggest thing is trying to take it one day at a time and recognizing and reminding yourself when you're in the midst of it, because it sounds really glamorous, like when the kids are in the recruiting process of, oh, this is so exciting, and it is, but it's really flipping hard to win any type of championship, and it's exhausting because you are on the road, and we've been on the road so much this year, starting the season in Virginia Beach, ending the Big East Conference in Virginia Beach again, and just being on the road so much has been tough. But I think the girls have done an incredible job at having fun even in the difficulties. I think the amount of times they're just playing card games and just doing silly things to keep themselves loose, and filling that downtime is really critical, I think, for any team that's going to be successful with so much time on the road.
You played in Nintendo Switch, or what were you playing before the game on Sunday?
I was throwing a lot of footballs around. The football's been my sport of choice. I have been playing Switch though. The game of the season has been Harry Potter Legos.
What's been the support around other coaches, players around other administration? I mean, winning another Big East, like, anybody text you? Anybody reach out to you so far?
Yeah, a lot of people have reached out, which is great, but I think this year I've been most grateful for the people in the really tough times because it was a hard season when, you know, it wasn't the most glamorous. We weren't leading the country in all the statistical categories. I think the people that have reached out, I think in the tough moments have been really special for me this year.